Hey guys, so welcome to video 2. You should have some research questions that you have brainstormed, maybe edited, added on a little bit from the last activity, and you're going to pick up in the same document, the same Google Doc or Word document that you were working with before. So in this video we're going to be specifically kind of thinking about brainstorming and building up more keywords, so taking what you were working with in the library, taking that list, moving it into your Google Doc and building off of that, and then talking about what you're going to be using those keywords for. So here's just a little library recap, so you remember kind of what we were doing, what we're going to be kind of building off from. What you were kind of working on in the library was coming up with that big LOI, working on your wording, evaluating it, and then Natalie used her own example to get you to practice breaking that down into like 3 to 4 like big concepts and then coming up with some synonyms for those. This was the example that she used. She broke hers into 3 terms: microaggressions, international students, and college campus. And then she started breaking those down into other terms that she might be able to use to get at what she's looking for. So for microaggressions, she used implicit bias, racial insensitivity, racial discrimination. So you should have a list like this. So in order to kind of build off of that, I want to talk just for a minute about using keywords, some of the reasons behind it, kind of what they're for, and what I mean when I say either like keywords or like search terms. So a search term or a keyword might include like obvious keywords, like the big terms, or it might be just something smaller or more specific that you need to look up. Maybe it attaches to one of your research questions instead of your big LOI. You do want to think about considering synonyms for terms, not just for the library, but also on Google, because as Natalie said, like it might try to anticipate some other synonyms for you, but it's not perfect. It won't always search synonyms for you, or at least not all of the synonyms for you. It's only going to put in it's only going to kind of spit back exactly what you tell it to. So if you're looking up something about media, and there's a really good article about a specific news source like New York Times, that article might not pop up if you weren't searching specifically for that, if you were still using the broad term media and you hadn't broken down any examples. If you were looking up something and it said you were looking up the word teen, there might be a great article out there that uses the term adolescent, and that might be in your results, but it might be on page like 8 or 10, and you might not ever get that far in your search, and you're kind of having to sift through all of those results. So you definitely want to think about synonyms and switching those out often and using like broad and specific terms to try to get, instead of 50,000 results you have to look through, getting exactly what you're looking for on those first few pages. Another tip is when you're thinking about these keywords, don't start with the evaluative stuff like positive, negative, good, bad, effective, ineffective, because again, it's going to search the words you put in. So if you're looking for effects of something and you search positive or negative, so say you search negative, it's going to look for that word negative. It might ignore any other descriptors that might be included in the article or in the author's wording. If you just search effects, you're going to get all effects. So there might be something like later on down the line when you're building an argument or you're looking for something really specific that you might want to limit yourself to using those words. But when you're first getting started, it's not a good idea to put in those like really specific kind of evaluative words, because it's going to limit what you're able to find. So of course, again, the goal of this is to have some better kind of search efficiency, and I've got some examples at the bottom of this page. So this is kind of a list of what some possible keywords would look like, of all different kind of levels in terms of like broad, specific, that kind of thing. If you were looking up standardized testing, the issue that we've kind of been going with, so it could be obviously standardized testing, teachers, professors, administrators. You might look up specific kinds of tests like SATs, EOG. You'll notice I've got some like specific names in here of specific like researchers, I've got some different kinds of like education models. I've also got terms like assessment. I've got some specific kinds of information I might want, like interviews, studies, that kind of thing. So don't be afraid to look up like as specific of terms as you need to. So we're going to get started, and this is your first step. So what you're going to be doing is actually still working on that same Google Doc again, and you're going to be doing kind of what we did with the research questions. Take the work you were doing in the library, whether it was, actually I think for most of you for this it would have been in your notebook, and record the 3 to 4 like main like concepts or terms that you were listing out, and as well as the synonyms. Go ahead and move that into your document so that we can kind of start playing with it. Okay, step 2 is where we're going to kind of start building on to things, and feel free at any point during this video to pause and take some time to work, so I'm just going to kind of blow through. Okay, so what you have are those kind of big key concepts and synonyms for your like big LOI. Right now what we're going to start doing is working with your research questions and actually breaking those down into some keywords and synonyms and some other terms you might want to search, and really figure out ways not just to get at that big question, but to get at these smaller ones also. So what you're going to do is actually go back to that set of research questions that you have, maybe create some space for each one, and then for each one you're going to come up with 2 to 4 keywords. So just to kind of get back in the Wayback Machine from the first video for an example, let's say I was looking at my big LOI of how does standardized testing impact learning. Well, you've already got some keywords and some synonyms for that big question, but let's say I actually wanted to then kind of look up specifically some information about standardized tests and No Child Left Behind. What I would then do is pull out standardized test and probably No Child Left Behind. I might include the word use because I might get some different results. And then what we're going to be doing later is taking these terms and searching those specifically to get a specific set of results that just really focuses on that smaller research question and not just the big LOI. So once you have kind of a list together of some keywords for each of the research questions that you've come up with so far, I want to kind of backtrack and think bigger at a way to kind of expand what you have. By taking a few minutes to come up with as many general terms that correlate to either your LOI, the big LOI, or any of your research questions as you can think of, and just extend that list out a little bit. So an example might be, if I were looking at global warming, I might want to include some general terms like weather, environment, pollution. If I were looking at standardized testing, I might want to think about education, assessment, learning, test, those kinds of things. Once you have your general terms, we're going to do the same thing, except we're going to be thinking about synonyms. Maybe if you think of some more for your LOI, that's great, or it could be for just your specific research questions. So if I were looking at something like teen, I might think youth or adolescent, or if I have effect, I might think impact, result, influence. Remember, these synonyms are really important. Because those are kind of the ways you're going to continue to manipulate and kind of switch up your results and try to filter through and get some of those good results to the beginning, some things that might be good but might be hidden later in your search. So it's a good way to kind of keep yourself from hitting a wall, so you can always have something new that you can try. Okay, and now we're going to get really specific. I want you to think about like specific terms, maybe names, examples that correlate to either your big LOI or your research questions. And again, try to extend that list a little bit of what you have. So some examples would be, if I were looking up something about standardized testing, I might want to make sure I have some really specific things like types of tests. There might be a really great article that's just on the EOGs that might be buried somewhere if I didn't search EOG and I was just sticking with standardized testing. So SAT, maybe specific researchers' names to see if they have any other results you might be able to use, any other publications. Ken Robinson, Sal Khan. If I were thinking like news media, I might look at like New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. Again, for the same reasons. There might be an article that's specifically about the kind of media or by a specific researcher, and it's just going to get buried So if you're stuck, you can always kind of switch things up to get at something different. And that's the end. So once you have some general and specific terms, some synonyms, you've got stuff for your LOI, for all of your research questions, you're ready to move on to the next video.